From the surface, scientists could hear something coming from the hole. What they heard caused most of the crew to quit on the spot.
They flew a drone into Yemen's Well of Hell, and what it captured terrified the entire world. Not because it confirmed the ancient myths, but because it shattered them completely. For centuries, this massive, gaping hole in the desert of eastern Yemen has been a place locals feared. A cursed pit believed to be the prison of jinn, demons, or something far worse. Stories of poisoned air, strange lights, and whispers from the void kept even the bravest away. No one really knew what lay inside until now. In September of 2021, a team of Omani cave explorers did the unthinkable. They didn't just approach the Well of Barhout, they entered it. Some rappelled down its walls while others stayed behind to fly a drone deep into the Earth's open wound. What they found defied centuries of terrifying legends. And when the footage surfaced, the world couldn't look away. This is the true story of what lies beneath Yemen's Well of Hell. Get ready for it. The hole that shouldn't exist. A near-perfect circle wide enough to swallow a skyscraper sits in the middle of the Yemeni desert, silent, ancient, and utterly out of place. This is the Well of Barhout. Locals call it something simpler yet more ominous, the Well of Hell. Located in Yemen's Al-Mahra province, not far from the Oman border, the sinkhole is massive, roughly 100 feet wide and over 360 feet deep. But it's not just its size that makes it disturbing. It's the complete mystery that has surrounded it for thousands of years. There are no signs of construction surrounding it, no tools, no carvings, and no records of it ever being dug. The edges are too perfect, the location too isolated, and for centuries, people have avoided it like a cursed wound in the earth, afraid to even get close. The fear isn't random. Generations of Yemenis believed this hole was a gateway to the underworld. According to legend, this is where evil jinn, supernatural spirits mentioned in the Quran, were banished. The stories say that anyone who gets too close might hear them whispering, calling them down. Some say birds avoid flying over it. Others swear animals refuse to go near it. A few claim to have seen lights moving in the darkness at night, lights with no explanation. But what truly adds to its fearsome reputation is the Prophet Muhammad's hadith, which warns of a place where the worst water on earth comes from. Many believe this referred to Barhout. Local folklore warns that the air at the bottom is deadly, that corpses dropped in are never seen again, and that no one who enters the pit survives. For centuries, no one did. Despite Yemen's rich geological and cultural history, the Well of Hell was largely undocumented by modern science. Even satellite maps showed little detail. No expeditions ever took place, and no official studies were conducted. Not even proper measurements have been taken. Just silence, a blank space in one of the hottest, driest, and most remote regions of the Arabian Peninsula. But that all changed in late 2021, when a team of Omani explorers decided to do what no one else dared: go in. With the help of drones, ropes, and sheer courage, they launched a mission that would finally peel back the layers of myth and reveal what truly waited inside. But no one expected what they found to be so different from what the world believed, because when the footage surfaced, it wasn't horror that terrified everyone. It was how wrong we had been in our beliefs about the Well of Hell. Legends, curses, and the Prophet's warning. Long before drones, cameras, or climbing gear, the Well of Barhout was already famous, but not for reasons anyone would want to celebrate. To locals, this wasn't just a hole. It was a forbidden zone, a place where the natural laws of the earth and sky seemed to bend. Parents warned their children never to go near it. Travelers avoided it, even if it meant going miles out of their way. The fear was generational, passed down in whispered stories and half-remembered warnings. Some of the earliest legends claim the well was created by God to imprison demons, a sort of supernatural abyss meant to contain evil. That belief isn't isolated either. In Islamic tradition, particularly among Yemeni scholars, there are mentions of Barhout being a cursed location. According to some hadiths, the Prophet Muhammad referenced a place in Yemen where the worst water on earth could be found. Though not named explicitly, many believe he was describing this place. It didn't take long for those religious references to evolve into folk tales. People said the well wasn't just cursed, it was alive. Locals told stories of dark winds that would suck in animals and invisible voices that would call out at night. Some believed the jinn, beings made of smokeless fire mentioned in the Quran, were cast into the hole as punishment. Others believed it was a place where angels refused to descend, and that even prayers were rejected near its edge. Even geological features added to the fear. The smell. Explorers and villagers alike described a strange sulfuric stench rising from the pit, especially at midday. Many believed this was the smell of death, or even of burning jinn trapped below. Some said birds flew over but never returned. Others told of explorers who went missing in the desert after stepping too close. Yet, with all that, no one had actually been inside. That's what made the Well of Hell so powerful. It wasn't the facts that made people afraid. It was the unknown. All anyone had were legends and warnings. And that's exactly why the world was stunned when a modern team finally decided to investigate it for real. Because what if the myths were true? What if this ancient hole in Yemen's desert really did contain something that should never be found? And what if the footage captured inside proved everything wrong? The Omani Caves Exploration Team didn't just want to film a deep hole, they wanted answers. But as they packed their gear and crossed the border into Yemen, they didn't realize that what they were about to uncover would silence centuries of superstition and raise even more questions. Arrival at the edge of the abyss. It was September 2021. The sky was clear. The air was dry and biting. And in the middle of Yemen's vast desert, 7 men stood at the edge of a mystery the world had only ever feared from afar. The Omani Caves Exploration Team, the OSET, had come prepared. Their convoy of 4-wheel drives rolled to a slow stop just yards from the hole's rim. The ground was cracked and sun-baked, brittle beneath their boots. But it wasn't the terrain that gave them pause. It was the feeling, a strange weight in the air, as if the atmosphere itself shifted near the edge. Mohammed Al-Kindi, a geology professor and the team's leader, had studied caves all over the Arabian Peninsula. But this was different. The Well of Barhout didn't just feel ancient, it felt untouched, like something that had never meant to be disturbed. They unloaded their gear in silence. Ropes, helmets, harnesses, gas monitors, and most importantly, a compact, high-res drone system that would serve as their eyes in the dark. The plan was simple, at least on paper. 3 members would descend by rope. The others would remain above to fly the drone deeper than ropes could reach. It was risky, but it was the only way to get full visual documentation of the well's interior without descending all the way to the bottom. Before going in, the team moved cautiously around the rim. The opening was nearly a perfect circle, 30 meters across, like a black coin punched into the earth. The drop was sheer and windless, and unlike most sinkholes, this one emitted almost no echo. Sound just seemed to vanish inside. The team had studied satellite imagery before arriving, but nothing prepared them for the scale of what they saw up close. Peering into the hole was like staring into an ocean of shadow. Layers of rock curved downward, narrowing into darkness. Vegetation clung to the edges, surprisingly green, nourished by something hidden deep below. The drone lifted off. Controlled by one of the surface team members, it hovered briefly, then dipped downward into the pit. The live feed came through in real time. The team watched the footage in silence as the drone passed the upper lip and was swallowed by shadow. As it descended, it captured footage of the hole, never seen before. Moisture glistened on some surfaces. Cavern pockets appeared, small chambers embedded into the shaft's walls. The further it went, the stranger things became. At one point, the drone's sensors picked up a sudden gust of upward wind, unexplained by the physics of the open shaft. Then, just past 100 meters, something flickered in the frame, a cluster of shadows moving unnaturally. No one spoke. They just watched. At the same time below, Al-Kindi and the others began their slow descent into the real heart of the Well of Hell. Into the dark, the descent begins. One by one, the team slipped over the edge, their harnesses creaking, ropes taut against the jagged stone. As the light from the surface faded above them, the well of hell revealed its first surprise. It was beautiful. Not terrifying, not cursed, but beautiful. The initial meters were steep but manageable. The walls, long hidden from the sun, were layered with ancient rock, streaked with mineral veins and damp patches that glimmered under their helmet lights. It looked less like a pit to the underworld, and more like a forgotten cathedral, carved by nature over millions of years. But beauty didn't mean safety. The deeper they went, the more the temperature shifted. It was oddly cool, far cooler than the desert air above. A thick, moist draft passed through narrow ledges and crevices, hinting at underground water. That was unexpected. According to the legends, the water here was supposed to be poisonous, cursed even. But already, that didn't seem to be the case. Roughly 100 feet down, the team reached a natural ledge and paused. Above them, the drone buzzed faintly in the distance. Below them, the shaft opened into a larger chamber, wider than they'd anticipated. Al-Kindi, speaking through a radio, noted the geological formations were unique. Stalactites, even green algae, signs of life, not death. It didn't add up. Where were the sulfur clouds? The burning stench? The dead birds? The signs of evil? The deeper they went, the more the myth began to unravel. Still, they couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. At about 300 feet down, the real anomaly appeared. Not a creature, but a structure. A flat surface of rock extended across one side of the chamber, almost too smooth to be natural. Not a man-made platform, exactly, but something shaped by time in a way that looked intentional. Resting on it were the skeletal remains of small animals, possibly birds or rodents. They weren't burned. They weren't deformed. They looked like they had simply fallen, or been dropped, and left to decay. Was this where the stories of bodies vanishing had come from? Then, something else caught their attention. Nestled into the back wall of the chamber was a deep crevice, narrow but tall, and emitting the sound of dripping water. Actual water. Al-Kindi collected a small sample, his hands steady, but his breath held. According to the legends, drinking from the well of hell brought death. But the sample was clear, fresh and perfectly drinkable. He radioed the surface team. "We're going deeper." The drone, now far below the original rim, rotated slowly, capturing every corner. The camera feed showed what no human eyes had ever seen. And still, no jinn, no flames, and no cursed spirits. The deeper they went, the more the legends seemed to collapse, and that alone was terrifying. Because for centuries, people had believed the well of hell was evil. But what if it was just misunderstood? Eye in the pit, the drone's mission. As the explorers pressed deeper into the darkness, the drone became their silent witness, gliding through the shadows of a place untouched by sunlight for what could be millions of years. Its rotors hummed faintly as it dipped into lower chambers, beyond where ropes could safely carry a human. This was the moment the world had been waiting for. Actual footage from the very heart of the so-called well of hell. And what it captured wasn't what anyone expected. The video feed showed narrow rock bridges, shelves suspended mid-air, and deep pits within the pit, almost like sub-caves stacked inside one another. It wasn't a straight tunnel downward. It was a maze. Some walls shimmered with moisture. Others were bone-dry, cracked with mineral veins. And on one ledge, half hidden in shadow, the drone's thermal camera detected heat signatures. Not from animals, but from air currents rising strangely from one side of the shaft. Al-Kindi, watching from below, spoke into the radio. That shouldn't be happening. Air shouldn't be rising from a cold pit. But there it was. Warm, humid gusts pushing upward from nowhere. No sulfur and no smoke. Just clean, moving air. Almost like the place was breathing. As the drone passed 330 feet, a new chamber opened before it. Wide and dome-shaped, its ceiling covered in dripping stalactites. There, beneath the overhang, the camera revealed something eerie, a patch of green. Not mold, not minerals, but moss, growing and thriving. In a place believed to be cursed for generations, life was thriving in silence. The footage circled the chamber slowly, sending back images that would later stun geologists and biologists alike. But more than the science, what unsettled the viewers most, once the footage was released, was how wrong the world had been. There were no skeletons piled high, no fire pits, and no howling jinn caught on camera. Just nature, ancient, mysterious, and alive. When the footage was reviewed later, frame by frame, there was nothing there. No monsters, no spirits, and no shadows darting behind rocks. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying part. Because for generations, fear had filled in the blanks. Curses, stories, and warnings had explained away what people couldn't see. But now, with footage from the deepest parts of the Well of Hell, there was no evil to be found. Just the uncomfortable truth. We were afraid of something we never understood. But the final surprise hadn't been revealed yet. Because after hours underground and hundreds of meters deep, Al-Kindi found something that changed everything. The footage that shocked the world. When the footage from the Well of Hell was released, it didn't spark screams. It sparked silence. The world had waited for confirmation of ancient fears, cursed spirits, sulfur clouds, piles of bones. Instead, it got something even more disturbing and shocking. Proof that the legends were wrong. The video showed it all. The moss, the chambers, the clean air, and the total absence of anything supernatural. As the footage made its way across news networks, YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter, the reaction was unexpected. A collective sense of unease. Not because people had seen a demon on camera, but because, for the first time in modern history, we had looked directly into a myth and found it to be false. Major outlets covered it within days. The Guardian called it one of the most fascinating geological discoveries in the Arabian desert. Science Alert praised the OSET team for demystifying one of Earth's last uncharted natural wonders. But the public's response was more emotional. Comments flooded in from viewers all over the world. This is even creepier because it's just empty. We imagined demons for centuries, and it turns out nature was the only monster. Proof that fear fills in the blanks when we don't have answers. Tens of millions of views poured in across multiple platforms. But what terrified viewers wasn't what was there, it was what wasn't. It forced people to confront a deeper question. How many other legends have we misunderstood? Religious scholars responded with nuance. Some pointed out that the hadith about the worst water on earth might not have been literal, or might not have referred to this well at all. Others suggested the jinn stories were metaphorical, or cultural warnings passed down to protect people from dangerous terrain. But either way, the myths had lost their grip because now there was proof. Proof that this hole was not evil. Al-Kindi himself spoke to reporters days later. He described the expedition not as a dismissal of faith or legend, but as a tribute to curiosity. The real fear, he said, is when we stop asking questions. Myths serve a purpose, but they should never keep us from learning. But not everyone was ready to let go of the fear. Some online insisted the footage had been edited, that the team hadn't gone deep enough, that the evil simply hadn't revealed itself yet. Even in the face of hard evidence, the myth clung on. And maybe that's what truly terrified the world. Not the demons we expected to see, but the realization that sometimes the real mystery is how tightly we hold on to stories that were never real to begin with. But while the footage shook belief systems above ground, below, Al-Kindi and his team were discovering something far more unsettling, not dangerous, but mind-blowing. Because at the bottom of the Well of Hell, they found life. Secrets beneath the sand. For a place called the Well of Hell, it was surprisingly alive. At the lowest point the team could safely reach, deep inside the final chamber, Al-Kindi noticed movement. Not the flicker of shadows or tricks of the light, but something real, small, and quick. When he turned his helmet camera toward the wall, the lens caught it clearly. Insects. Not fossilized and not dead, but living. Microbial life, moss, and insects, all coexisting in a place that had never known daylight. How could a supposedly cursed sinkhole, feared for generations, actually be a micro-ecosystem? The deeper the team explored, the more signs of life they found. Moisture, for starters. The walls sweated with condensation. Water droplets formed at the tips of stalactites, feeding patches of green. And where there was water, there was always a chance for life. They collected samples, slime molds, algae, even trace fungi. It wasn't just unusual, it was historic. According to Al-Kindi, this was the real treasure of the well, not gold or demons. Biological evidence of survival in extreme conditions, sealed off from sunlight and human interaction for potentially thousands of years. He theorized that the hole's unique depth and insulation might have created a rare environment, protected from harsh desert temperatures above, and nourished by slow groundwater seepage from deep aquifers below. And in that isolated environment, life adapted. Later analysis of the collected water would confirm what the footage hinted at. It wasn't poisonous at all. In fact, it was some of the cleanest groundwater ever pulled from a sinkhole in the region, completely potable, with no signs of toxins or contaminants. This alone contradicted centuries of myth, particularly the claim that the well contained the worst water on Earth. But it wasn't just science that made the discovery profound. It was what it symbolized. The Well of Hell had been feared, avoided, and mythologized for centuries, all because no one dared to enter it. And yet, when someone finally did, the truth was not only harmless, it was beautiful. It made people question how often we treat the unknown as evil, simply because it's unknown. How often do we turn mystery into fear? And how many other places in the world or even within ourselves might be misunderstood the same way? The footage of the moss and insects spread almost as fast as the initial drone video. Scientific communities praised the OSET team for their bravery and precision. Environmentalists pointed to the findings as a reason to protect the area from exploitation or tourism. And some began to propose that the Well of Barhout might be designated as a natural heritage site, not for its fearsome reputation, but for its delicate, hidden life systems. Because in the end, what lay beneath the sand wasn't a curse. It was a secret. One that had waited quietly for someone to find it. The truth about the Well of Hell. So what's the truth? What really lies at the bottom of Yemen's Well of Hell? Well, it's not demons, it's not cursed water, and it's definitely not a portal to another world. It's something far more powerful. The Well of Barhout is a mirror for fear, for imagination, and for everything we believe without ever asking why. For centuries, people avoided this place not because of what they saw, but because of what they thought they'd find. The idea that it was cursed, haunted, or dangerous wasn't based on science. It was built on silence. And in that silence, myth thrived. But when the Omani Cave Exploration Team flew a drone into the well, and when they descended themselves, they shattered that silence. The camera didn't just capture footage, it captured clarity. The water, very clean. The air, breathable. The structure, natural. The evil, nowhere to be found. What terrified the world wasn't that the legends were true. It was that they weren't, because that meant entire generations had been afraid of nothing but a story. That's what makes this discovery so meaningful. In a world that often clings to certainty, the Well of Hell reminded us of the value of not knowing, of questioning, and of exploring. The fear didn't vanish overnight. Some still believe the true depths remain unexplored. Others claim the well allowed the explorers to leave. And maybe, just maybe, that's okay, because belief and science don't always need to fight. Sometimes they walk together. And in this case, it was science that helped clarify what belief had blurred for centuries. But one final truth remained, and it's perhaps the most important one of all. There's still more we don't know. The footage was groundbreaking, but the well hasn't been fully mapped. The lower chambers may contain other passageways. The groundwater system feeding the ecosystem is still being studied. The origin of the perfect circular structure remains a mystery. And even Al-Kindi admits that the well could hold geological secrets that still defy explanation. And that's the beauty of it, because the Well of Hell wasn't terrifying because of what was inside. It was terrifying because it challenged us to face our fears without the comfort of old stories, to admit we were wrong, to replace legend with knowledge, and to embrace the unknown, not as an enemy, but as a frontier. So the next time you hear whispers of a cursed place, a forbidden space, or a legend passed down with fear, ask yourself, what might we find there if we only dared to look? Because what the drone captured inside Yemen's well of hell didn't unleash terror, it unleashed the truth. What do you think? Was the well of hell ever cursed? Or did we just fear what we didn't understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video. Catch you in the next one.